new national minimum wage for Nigerian workers, amendment of the National Minimum Wage Amendment Act 2011. Well, I guess there's a mistake here. The purpose of this letter is to forward to you for legislative action a new minimum wage bill to further amend the National Minimum Wage Amendment Act 2011 in order to give a new national minimum wage of 27,000 naira per month to the lowest paid Nigerian worker from the current 18,000 naira per month. This new bill and the amendments contained therein were arrived at after consultations by the Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage, which was constituted by me in November 2017 to consider, make recommendations, and advise the government on this issue. The Tripartite Committee comprised representatives of the federal government, Governors Forum, organized private sector, and the organized federations of trade unions in Nigeria. The Federal Executive Council, National Economic Council, and the National Council of States have all noted and approved these recommended amendments. Other highlights of the amendments include exemptions for establishments employing less than 25 persons, 2, 5 years review period of the Act in consonance with the constitutional review period for pensions. 3, alterations in the amount of fines payable by defaulters on prosecution. Bearing in mind that the issue of prescribing a national minimum wage for the Federation or any part thereof is within the exclusive legislative list of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, listed as item number 34 of Part 1 of the second schedule. It is my pleasure to forward this bill for expeditious action. Please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration. Sincerely, President Muhammadu Buhari. So I've directed that the bill should be gazetted so that we can take the first reading and second reading of the bill today, constitute an ad hoc committee which will conduct a public hearing on Monday, and hopefully by Tuesday we should be done. But I've had a discussion of 30,000 naira is not even reflected here. I don't know what happened to the 30,000. Communication from the President. Again, this one is on presidential decision to decline assent to the prohibition of double taxation between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Republic of Korea, Domestication and Enforcement Bill 2018, pursuant to Section 58, subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 is amended. Hereby conveyed to the House of Representatives my decision on 17th January 2019 to decline presidential assent to the prohibition of double taxation between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Republic of Korea, Domestication and Enforcement Bill 2018, recently passed by the National Assembly. I'm declining assent because the bill and the schedules are passed are not a true reflection of the agreement signed between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Republic of Korea. The variance between the bill and the actual bilateral agreement it seeks to domesticate include the following provisions on non-discrimination, which is Article 24 of the agreement was completely omitted from the first schedule to the past bill. The word prohibition was used in the title explanatory memorandum, arrangement of sections, preamble, section 1 and section 3 of the past bill. The word used in the preamble and title of the signed agreement is avoidance. The phrase Republic of South Korea was indicated in the title, explanatory memorandum, arrangement of sections, preamble, as well as section 1 to 3 of the past bill. This should be changed to Republic of Korea, which is the official name of the country that signed the agreement. The order of Nigeria tax items 1 to 6 in paragraph 1A of Article 2 of the schedule to the past bill is different from the order in which taxes were listed in the signed agreement. This will create citation problems between the agreement to be implemented in Nigeria and that in the Republic of Korea. Please accept, right, Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration. Chairman of the committee, please note effect the corrections so that we can pass a bill that truly reflects the content of the agreement signed between Nigeria and the Republic of Korea, not the Republic of South Korea. Yes. Yes.
No. Please, Honorable Wase, I'm also equally 100% full-blooded APC. Mr. Speaker, my name is Lasun Yusuf. I represent the Record Oloruda, Orolo Shobufera constituency. I'm from the state of Osun. In fact, it pains me and I'm compelled to stand up this morning to observe very critically that a bill that was sent by the executive, the wordings are of that of the executive. The wordings are of that of the executive, and from the letter you have just read, they are purely typographical errors and will be portrayed to the outside world as if we consistently make mistakes that are avoidable. To me, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And in between, when that treaty was passed here and sent to the executive, the time was sufficient for them to underneath write a letter correcting the typographical error or pointing our attention to it instead of coming to the public there as if we have done something out of the blues. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to put in place a measure of making sure that when such a bill is not assented to in future and it are purely typographical matters, it shouldn't be done the way we are doing it. The public will think we are not doing our job. And like my elder brother said, it's purely a government bill, an executive bill. There are wordings, there are everything. We were not, if you find out, Mr. Speaker, probably we are not even at the point where the bilateral things were even being discussed. And so, Mr. Speaker, sorry, I think we have to say this, and we have to let the Nigerian public know that we know our job here, and we are no small boys too.
Chair Foreign Relations Committee.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much. I must highlight what the Deputy Speaker has just said. Mr. Speaker, this is a domestication bill. It was forwarded to us by the Ministry of Justice. And the words in the bill are exactly the words that were presented before the National Assembly. But Mr. Speaker, more than that, more than even the typographical errors that have been cited in the bill, Mr. Speaker, only yesterday, it was announced that Ghana had overtaken Nigeria with regards to foreign direct investment. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would have thought that over and beyond whatever it is, aside from the fact that indeed the errors did not emanate from the National Assembly, that the intent of the bill should have superseded whatever concerns are raised. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill has been with the Ministry of Justice for the past 7 years. It has taken us 7 years. There were so many agreements that Nigeria had entered into with the Republic of South Korea that have stalled because of this double taxation bill. Mr. Speaker, pressure was put on the National Assembly that went ahead and put pressure on the executive to bring the bill. And now the executive again has refused to do it. My concern, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that if this carries on, and I've seen, and while it is not okay for the executive to reject most of the bills that emanate from the National Assembly, I think it is even more painful when the executive rejects bills that have a direct influence on opening up Nigeria's economy and bringing us out of the quagmire that we find ourselves. Mr. Speaker, sir, I shall please ask that you yield to the committee chair who worked on the wordings directly with the bill so that he can give us the 7-year history of this bill and why this bill is absolutely important at this time, that the executive please append its signature, not only because of the economic importance of the bill, but because of the optics of it as far as foreign direct investment is concerned with our country that is bulking under an economy that is almost comatose. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Yakub Abiodun Balogun. I represent the very industrious people of Lagos Island Federal Constituency. I want to thank the previous speakers on this issue and to say that I'm also surprised that the bill should be left assented to by Mr. President. As the chairman of the committee in charge, we'll go back to see what could be done. But I want to confirm also that when I became the chairman of that committee, the first assignment we had was to visit the embassy of the South Korea, because the pressure has been on the parliament to get this avoidance of double taxation situation straightened out. So my committee came up with private member bill on that same subject. But when we were processing that, the executive, the villa brought the executive bill for 3 countries, that is South Korea, Spain, and Sweden. So we have to jettison what we are doing as a committee to go along with the executive bill, because that one takes precedence over the private members bill. So, and it was exactly what they brought that we processed through the public hearing and everything through the report stage and concurrence with the Senate. So we will go back to see all the issues raised by the executive and see where we can bail out Nigeria, because we need more of investors to come. If you see how worried the South Korean embassy has been, and the purpose of the bill, sir, is that once somebody, a South Korean or a Korean is in Nigeria, does a business, accumulates profit, and haven't paid our taxes, that profit that is allowed to remit to Korea should not be taxed again. Avoidance of double taxation. And that will encourage a lot of investors to come. Because once they know that once we give to Caesar what is Caesar's in Nigeria, they will not be double taxed in their country, they will come. So we'll go back, sir, to see, my committee will see, and we'll get this done quickly by the grace of God. Thank you.
Okay, Chairman, please avail me a copy of the executive bill that was transmitted. And I don't know what interest we'll have in the House to import certain things into the bill that was passed, other than the bill transmitted to the House by the executive. So let me have a copy of that, and then we'll compare it with some of the observations. If they are the same, we'll return the bill to them for them to correct it before they can send it again, so that we don't pass something that they will not sign. That's all. Honorable Prof, I don't think there's anything to say again on this matter, really. Yes. So let me have a copy of the executive bill that was transmitted to us to see whether those mistakes originated from the bill or from the House. It's better for us to establish that. So any member who has a petition to present to the House will please rise to do so. Any petition? No petition. Honorable colleagues, I will take the first reading of the bill. First business of the day is presentation of one bill. I now invite the clerk to read the short title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, members, National Minimum Wage Bill 2019, first reading.
So, yes, corrected. So we'll take the second reading of the minimum wage bill later. The second business of the day is presentation of two reports of the Committee on Treaties, Protocol and Agreements, standing in the name of Honorable Yakub Abiodun Balogun. Honorable Balogun is now invited to present the reports. Hope these reports are in consonance with what was transmitted,
Yes.
so that we avoid
Exactly what
the scenario in which we are right now.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once again, my name is Yakub Abiodun Balogun, representing the very industrious people of Lagos Island Federal Constituency. I am from Lagos State. I wish to crave indulgence of this August House to do receive the reports of the Committee on Treaties, Protocols and Agreements on the bill for an act to give effect in the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants and for related matters, HB 658. And I also want to crave the indulgence of the Honorable Speaker to please request this House to do receive the report of the Committee on Treaties, Protocols and Agreements on a bill for an act to provide for the enforcement and punishment of crimes against humanity, war crimes, genocide, and related offenses, and to give effect to certain provisions of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court in Nigeria, and for related matters, HB 594. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder? Honorable Lamide.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable Onio Lamide, member representing F4, Ekiti West and the Federal Constituency. I rise to second that motion as ably moved by my honorable colleagues. As a second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Balogun, please proceed and lay the report. Third business of the day is presentation of report of Committee on Petitions on the petition by Magna Pax Law Partners against the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, NCDMB, on the victimization, unfair treatment, breach of public service rules in dealing with Mr. I.K. Joy Uzo, standing in the name of Honorable Uzoma Inkem Abonta. Honorable members will recall that the petition was referred to the committee on Thursday, 22nd February 2018. The report is ready for presentation. Honorable Abonta is now invited to present the report. Chairman, Rules and Business appears is not on the floor.
Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, Mr. Speaker, may I apply that this item is stepped down because of the absence of the sponsor? I so move.
Item stepped down by leave of the House. The first order of the day, honorable colleagues, the third reading of a bill for an act to provide for establishment of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism for training, certification, and registration of personnel in Nigeria for related matters. Honorable members will recall the House adopted the report of Committee of the Whole on the bill on Tuesday, 22nd January 2019. Therefore, call on the Leader of the House to move that the bill be now read the third time.
Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I rise to move establishment of National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism for the training, certification, and registration of personnel in Nigeria and for other related matters read for the third time. I so move.
Chairman, Rules and Business, please second.
Mr. Speaker, may I second the motion moved by the Leader of the House?
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. And I invite the clerk to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the bill for an act to provide for establishment of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism for training, certification or registration of personnel in Nigeria and for related matters. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed. Second order of the day is the third reading of a bill for an act to make provision for retirement age for teachers in Nigeria and for related matters. Honorable members will recall that the House adopted the report of the Committee of the Whole on the bill on Wednesday, 23rd January 2019. Therefore, call on the Leader of the House to move that the bill be now read the third time.
Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I ask that the bill for an act to make provisions for the retirement age for teachers in Nigeria and for other matters be read the third time. I so move.
Rules and Business, please second.
Honorable Speaker, may I second the motion as moved by the Leader of the House? I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. I now invite the clerk to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the bill for an act to make provisions for retirement age for teachers in Nigeria and for related matters. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed. Now, with regards to the third order of the day, which is the resumption of debate on general principles of bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 8.8 trillion. There was a directive from the chair yesterday that relevant committees should meet with the ministers, reconcile the figures, and submit a report today based on which we will, from vintage point of information, conclude the debates on the budget. But unfortunately, that report has not been turned in. So I would suggest that in view of the fact that we may have to sit on Tuesday again, we'll give them from now to Tuesday so that we can have a harmonized position before we can bring the debate on the budget, on the appropriation bill, to a reasonable conclusion. So in view of that, I'll call on the Chairman, Rules and Business to move that we step down consideration of this item against Tuesday, and then direct the committees to ensure, Chairman Finance is here, to ensure Chairman's Finance appropriation that these figures, the errors that were identified yesterday, are corrected unfailingly, and the report is late on Tuesday so that we can conclude work, debate on the general principles of the bill, appropriation bill.
Mr.
So,
Speaker,
Chairman, Rules and Business, please.
may I move that we step down continuation of debate on item number 3, which is on the appropriation bill for 2019, in view of the fact that the report that the House ordered to be presented is not yet ready. I so move.
So items stepped down by leave of the House. Members who want to contribute their debate to the budget against Tuesday should please put down their names. The appropriation bill for Tuesday, those who want to speak, on Tuesday should put down their names. That's those who did not speak yesterday on the budget can do so on Tuesday. So we should have a record of name of members, list of name of members who want to debate the appropriation bill on Tuesday, sorry. So we will now move to the fourth order of the day, which is commencement of debate on the general principles of bill of an act to prescribe women quotas for elections into the Senate, House of Representatives, State Houses of Assembly, and area councils of FCD to support and enhance women participation and representation in certain elective offices and for related matters. Standing in the name of Honorable Sadiq Ibrahim, honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 18 December 2018. I now invite Honorable Sadiq Ibrahim, who is now the spokesperson for the Nigerian woman, to move that the bill be now read the second time. Are you challenging my authority to appoint him?
Mr. Speaker, sir, my respected honorable colleagues, my name is Sadiq Ibrahim. I represent Ufore Song Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from the land of beauty, Adamawa. Let me begin by thanking you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the honor on this floor as the brand new spokesman for Nigerian women. Mr. Speaker, before this time, I was chairman, House Committee on Women Affairs in Adamawa State. For the simple, Mr. Speaker, before then, let me move that the bill on women participation in elections support bill 2018 be read for the second time. I move, Mr. Speaker.
Seconder, Chair, Foreign Relations Committee.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for yielding the floor to me. My name is Nena Elendu KJ, member representing Bende Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm from Abia State. It is my pride, my pleasure, and indeed my honor to be called upon to second this very important motion that's moved by Honorable Sadiq. I so second.
Honorable Sadiq, thou shalt not be intimidated. You have to move this bill with courage, and anyone who opposes you, like Honorable Chika, who has started showing indication, then maybe it's not born of a woman. Any member here who opposes Honorable Sadiq is perhaps not born of a woman, but some of us who are born of...
Mr. Speaker, once again, thank you very
Honorable
much.
Sadiq, you have the protection, so lead the debate, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I know I have always had your protection on this floor, and I have that solid protection from you today. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, what the Adamawa State House of Assembly did to me in 2011, they thought it was a punishment. They gave me chairmanship of Committee on Women Affairs, and my face became more familiar than that of the Speaker on Adamawa television. And they removed me because of that and gave me Chairman Committee on Security. Mr. Speaker, I have your support. Today, I am sure, perhaps after this, you may give me the chairmanship of House Committee on Women Affairs. Mr. Speaker, long before now, I have always advocated and say and still stand on it that any society that locks away more than 50% of its population can never grow. Women constitute more than 50% of Nigeria's population. And if we lock them out politically, Mr. Speaker, this country cannot develop. Access to education, Mr. Speaker, means access to politics and political office. access to political office, Mr. Speaker, leads to access to finance. And access to finance leads to access to education. This is a cycle. If we don't break the cycle of poverty in this country also cannot develop. And poverty is a woman. Mr. Speaker, this bill, as you rightly pointed out, they tried immediately to stand down this bill, including my Oga, the Deputy Speaker. He said this bill is discriminatory. I want to prove by the provisions of Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended that this bill is not discriminatory. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, I read the section the Deputy Speaker and Chika may be relying on, and that is section 42. Mr. Speaker, that is section 42 of the Nigerian Constitution, and I read with your kind permission. Section 42 of the Nigerian Constitution. It says, and I read with your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, a citizen of Nigeria, of a particular community, ethnic group, place of origin, sex, religion, or political opinion shall not, by reason only that he is such a person, be subjected either expressly by or in the practical application of any law enforced in Nigeria or any executive or administrative action of the government to disabilities or restrictions to which citizens of Nigeria or other communities, ethnic groups, places of origin, circumstances of birth, sex, religious or political opinions are not subject to. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why people think that this bill is discriminatory is that if you are not a woman, if the law I'm proposing says that this is the time of women to contest, you go to court and plead section 42 and say they are discriminating against me because I'm a woman. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, for those who will argue along this line, what I'm advocating here is rotation. Mr. Speaker, rotation is not discriminatory. If not for rotation, Mr. Speaker, this country wouldn't have been what it is today. Without putting in the Constitution, we are rotating our presidency between North and South for peace to reign. Mr. Speaker, turn by turn is not discriminatory. Mr. Speaker, this is a positive action. It is to ensure regularity like federal character. Mr. Speaker, the way I am proposing it here, in the Senate and in the House of Reps and House of Assembly and FCT councillors, Adamawa, for instance, has 3 senators like any other state. 3 senators. In my proposal, Mr. Speaker, we shall start with the senatorial district that has the largest population in that state. In Adamawa, where I come from, Adamawa Central has the largest population. Therefore, we will make this law to ensure that INEC directs all political parties to, in the particular year, ask them to only Adamawa Central, all political parties must field women. All political parties must field women as their candidates for that year. The other 2 senatorial districts can field men. Therefore, if we say it is turn by turn, it's like a boss coming to Ojo Labor to carry 10 people, and there are a queue of men and women, and the last woman entered the bus, and the bus driver telling them, bus number 52 is coming, you man stand, so that next time I'm coming. Mr. Speaker, point of order. Turn by turn is not discriminatory.
Honorable Soba, what is your point of order? Sorry, yes. Honorable. But you should have allowed him to finish. This is a debate.
But Mr. Speaker,
I don't know why you are raising point of order, but let's hear you.
Allow him. Because there is no point we wasting our time here only for Sadiq now to come and petition the Constitution and go to another thing. What I'm saying is simple. Sadiq is telling us that turn by turn is not unconstitutional, rotational is not, but where is it enshrined in our laws? That turn by turn.
But that would be your contribution to the debate. It's not a point of order.
It's a point of order.
No.
On the same section 42. No. On the same section 42.
You are speaking against the bill.
Not against the bill.
So
Section 42 already has has stopped him from even arguing over this thing.
No, no,
It has stopped him automatically. It has
Allow
stopped
him to finish the debate, then you can make your points.
I'll come back.
Honorable Sadiq, can you take out your mic, please? Take out your mic.
Mr. Speaker, Nigeria is not the only country that will have this law if this house passes. And as I said, you remain as Honorable Yakubu Dogara, during which tenure women in Nigeria has a voice to contest election. Mr. Speaker, in the United States, positive discrimination is called affirmative action. It is called reservation in India and Nepal. It is called positive action, and it is called employment inequity in Canada and in South Africa. There is no way this country can remain without giving women the opportunity to contest election. Because, Mr. Speaker, election is about money, election is about opportunity, which our women do not have. And we cannot continue to stop women from participating. What I'm saying is that today, Mr. Speaker, in the whole of Nigeria's National Assembly, in the Senate there are only 21 women. Today in the Senate there are only 7 women. In the House of Reps there are only 21 women. How can we make more women come so that we can develop our country? The only way to make women come is to pass this bill to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, every state, at least in every state of the Federation, one woman comes as a senator. And the only way we can do that is to make turn by turn. Adamawa Central has the largest population. In Lagos, we look at the senatorial district that has the largest population. We tell the men that please wait, so that if this woman does her turn, then the next state, the number of population, the next senatorial district is Adamawa South, the next population. Adamawa North, Adamawa Central brings his own senator. Adamawa South bring. Then in House of Reps, we have to ensure that at least one-third of the population, one-third of the population will be women. So that in Adamawa we have 8 members of House of Reps. We shall ensure that every election Adamawa bring 2 people here. This law, Mr. Speaker, we have to, if we reach the equilibrium in the next 50 years when you and I will not be here, then if they like, they can change the law. But you took me to ECOWAS Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I have attended all ECOWAS meetings in 15 countries. Wherever I went to, women are almost in the majority in the parliamentarians. And I researched this, I asked them, why are women in greater majority from their own countries, while in my own country there are only 7 senators, and there are only 12 members of the House of Reps. They told me that in our own countries, in Mali, in Senegal, in Togo, there is a deliberate law to ensure that women are given the opportunity to contest election. Because women do not have the money to contest, and women always fix our meeting at midnight when we do political meeting. Anyone who goes after midnight, she will be labeled a prostitute. Her husband may not even allow her because she wouldn't want to be labeled as prostitute. Mr. Speaker, we have to make a deliberate effort. I can assure you our section 42 does not prohibit us from passing this law. We have to pass it if we want this country to move forward. Women are more than 50% of the population. They elect us to be here. Mr. Speaker, women elected all of us to be here. Everybody that is seated here, he is elected more by women than by men. And we have to ensure that we do it. The fact of the matter is that, Mr. Speaker, all our laws are made by men. They are not made by women. Take for example, in the criminal law, Mr. Speaker, you are a lawyer. Before you convict a person for rape, you have to prove penetration. If it was a woman that can make that law, no woman can tell you that you have to prove penetration. There are many circumstances to prove rape in Nigeria. Who will sit down and go to a room with a television camera and make sure that he's recorded so that they can prove penetration in court? We cannot continue to discriminate against women in this country. Mr. Speaker, 50%, more than 50% of our population elected us. They elected you. This law is not harmful to Nigerian politics. It is not. Section 42 does not apply in this place because positive discrimination is allowed in America, and this section does not say that turn by turn is discrimination. It is not discrimination against you. When you hear discrimination, is that it is a fundamental human right. Because our constitution has 11 sections of fundamental. There is no section in our fundamental chapter 4 that says that if you are prevented from contesting election because you have to wait for your turn, it is fundamental. It is contest election is not a fundamental human right. We can jettison it and ensure that our own constitution takes care of this, because the law the constitution allows us to pass this law. Any man that is born of woman as united political must support this law, unless we are born by a man. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable colleagues, you know this is a women-friendly house. I want to sound that note of warning first, and to also add that why are Nigerian men always scared of the women folk? I really don't know. Because you see, it is said that when the women in a particular community fall, it's because there's no strength in the men. Are we saying that Nigerian men are actually weaklings? Even Honorable Gudaji will have no problem with Honorable Sadiq's position, provided that it's not smart women as Nena that be elected. Gudaji will have no problem. Thank God he's not even here today. So we'll take contribution from Nena first before we move to DS.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Speaker, for yielding the floor to me. And again, I'd like to thank Honorable Sadiq for this very brave effort at bringing this bill that from the points of order and from the side talk and the laughing, some people think it's a joke, other people think it's a waste of time. But Mr. Speaker, let me say that Section 42, and a lot of people have hidden behind Section 42 to claim that for women to want us to truly have a representative democracy that covers all shades of our population is wrong. What is the definition of democracy? They say government of the people, by the people, for the people. It is representative, and what that means is that the shade of your democracy must cover the different shades of your population. All the demographics must be represented. 51% of this country's population deserves at least 35% representation. Mr. Speaker, it is said that no bird can fly with one wing and expect to soar. Mr. Speaker, in the last couple of years, we have looked at our democracy and we constantly complain that it's not doing as well as we want it to do. Maybe, Mr. Speaker, sir, if there were more women involved in our democracy, it may do better. Scandinavian countries, Mr. Speaker, sir, have the highest indices, governmental indices, of any part of the world, and they are hugely populated by women. So it is a safe assumption that if the countries that are populated in governments by women do well, and the countries that are populated by men in governance are faltering, then maybe we should have a bit more women in governance to stabilize the government. Mr. Speaker, everybody hides behind Section 42 of the Constitution, and they say it is discriminatory. But Mr. Speaker, we all know that the provisions of the Constitution are self-evident, but they are not self-enacting. By so, what do I mean? That there is no discrimination, yet this House has passed the bill on people living with disability. Yet this same Constitution has passed the Child Rights Act. So what does that mean? That all these pieces of legislation help the Constitution to achieve that which the Constitution intends in the first place, which is no discrimination against any type of people. Mr. Speaker, I am very concerned that we do not want women in Parliament. As Honorable Sadiq pointed out, the criminal code, most of the laws are made by men. But Mr. Speaker, there's a huge demographic, the Nigerian woman, who's part of this democracy, who's part of this country, whose voice must be heard. Otherwise, we cannot legitimately say that we have a democracy. If indeed this parliament, sitting down here, husbands to wives and fathers to daughters, do not believe that women need the added opportunity. I ran in an election. You've used me as an example. Honorable Gudaji has used me as an example. And Mr. Speaker, it means that there is somewhat, and I only tell these stories to highlight the fact that people recognize that the set of my chromosomes don't necessarily take away from my abilities. But the truth of the matter in our country, Mr. Speaker, is that poverty wears a woman's face. Is that our democracy has gotten so expensive. In the last round of elections, our democracy has gotten very violent. I am a victim of that electoral violence, a very strong woman. I'm a victim of electoral violence. There are women who are victims of the fact that they cannot afford it. And all they're saying is make an opportunity. Let our democracy have the coloration that it must have. Where women, where a half of our population is given affirmative action, whatever, so that our democracy is balanced. Is it fair on the other people? Probably not. But it has not been fair on women for how many years? Mr. Speaker, look at the American elections, for instance, and it's not a Nigerian thing. It's taken them 200 years. But a lot of people were willing to vote for a black man, but they were not going to vote for even a white woman. So women have problems around the world. And we're saying that if we're the strongest and most populous democracy in the world, if Nigeria wants to take that leadership position in the world, then all the indices, Mr. Speaker, sir, must be met. For the longest years, for 10 years, Mr. Speaker, this parliament has been trying to pass the CEDAW bill. We have tried it as the CEDAW bill, it has not worked. We have broken it down, it has not worked. We have taken out the contentious issues in the CEDAW bill, it has not worked. Now, my colleague, through ingenuity, is coming up with an affirmative action bill to at least open up the spaces and create an opportunity for us to have a democracy that covers all shades. And some people think it's a waste of time, and others think it is the butt of jokes. Mr. Speaker, sir, my dear colleagues, I believe that as a people, again, let me sound repetitive, as husbands to wives and fathers to daughters, who want to open up the doors for your daughters to have the opportunity not to have a glass ceiling. It is time for you to use this opportunity today and say, why am I in Parliament today? Poke at those holes in the glass ceiling so that we can shatter the glass ceiling and give our daughters the opportunity to at least dream dreams. To at least dream dreams. My dear colleagues, I shall take my seat, but before I do, this is not a case, this is not a time to show your legal shenanigans. This is a time to do that which is right. And I think that by doing that which is right is by opening up our democracy to at least half of our population to have at least half a chance to be part of governance. Thank you.
Ideas is a very strong man. He will never let Nigerian woman fall.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Lasun Yusuf. I represent the Repodun Olorunda Orolu Osogbo Federal Constituency. I'm from the state of Osun. Part of wisdom is that if you happen to want to speak after somebody who is intelligent, eloquent, has just finished speaking, part of wisdom is just to take a rest. I would have probably rejected the option of speaking after Nina for two reasons. One, a woman parliamentarian for close to 12 years now. And of course, somebody who has demonstrated in the last almost 12 years that propensity and capacity for being able to stand up for women matters. But it is not as simple as it is, because this matter does not belong to the other room. This is a public matter, and we have to begin to address the issue of women the way it should be. It is not politics first. Why are we trying to, through law, wanting to turn everybody into politicians? The matters of women that we must have attended to, have we attended to them properly? One, from training, in terms of domestication, in terms of education, in terms of opportunity. The ones Sadiq cited which is economical. How many of us have sat down in the past to discover that why we have largely poverty, because it's a research, it's the result of a research by IMF, World Bank, other international economic bodies, that why we are poor all over the world is because half of the population, which incidentally now are women, have been neglected for a very long time. Sadiq is not trying, I don't know whether it is possible, to directly link political participation to economic development of women. It is no. It is no. Yes, it is true that where there is power, there is money. But at the same time, yes, I agree with that. Where there is power, there is money. But we have to put certain things in place before we begin to say that less women have power so that they can have money. I'm not even going to go to constitutional now, because initially my intention was to quote constitution, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want anybody to think that he can beat me at that step. But I want to use the real politics that we want to allocate quota to now, that it is the same politics that we have used over time, not only to deride women, but to subjugate them. An example is this. Politicians, when we want to do empowerment, we give pepper grinder to women. Pepper grinder. Is everybody going to turn to pepper grinder for you to be able to have economic empowerment? What I think we must do, this bill is discriminatory, it's simple, it's discriminatory. And I want to when we were doing the constitution alteration, I remember when we came to the issue of giving women 35%. A lot of our members argued vehemently, opposing the fact that in some states of the federation, we will not be able to get the 35% into the cabinet of state and local government. Sadiq will prove me right here. And I want to mention specific name. I remember the day the Senate leader was saying it. He was saying it with all utmost sense of responsibility, that he's not against giving 35% to women, but he's so sure that in Yobe State, at that point, you cannot have that 35% when government is about to be formed. And at that point, you are going to put whoever that is the governor or the local government chairman under pressure, because it now becomes a constitutional matter. If it is constitutional that you must give 35% to women, and you are about forming a government where you are not likely to get the number of women to come 35%, then it becomes a problem. So what are we saying, Mr. Speaker? What is supportable in the case of women? I respect women, not only respect, I adore them, because God gave women some natural roles that cannot be played by men. One is they attend to their children. Two, I always refer to this. I remember when I was entering the university in 1981. Those of us who are my age mates, as at that time, you pay 45 naira per bed space in a year. As at that time, 50 naira is for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. As at that time, the costliest book I was to buy that year was a physics book which cost 4 naira 50 kobo. Yet, my mother gave me 2,000 naira to go and register in school. So why wouldn't I respect women? Why wouldn't I adore them? I was trained by a woman. But women must not be subjected to mere mathematics of saying until you give them quotas, that is when they go to have serve their responsibility. So what I'm saying in essence is this: we all know that even if we support this bill, that is not going to be practicable. We know it. We know it unless we want to deceive ourselves. Begin to allocate quotas. Even from the title of the bill, Sadiq, as brilliant as he is, as a lawyer and a legislator, was struggling to interpret the title of the bill itself. He said quotas, then later he said turn by turn. What is the meaning of turn by turn and quotas? He was struggling. He was struggling because there is no way you can put turn by turn in the title. There is no way you can put rotation into the title. The only way you can explain the title is the quota, which is now we boil down to issue of percentages. Honorable colleagues, Sadiq has spoken, yes, struggled to introduce the bill. India has taken it up to the next level. But my own opinion is that we can't begin to make laws that we know one, at the end of the day, it's not going to be executed because nobody is going to see that. What I would advise those of us who are so enamored by the fact that we want to empower women is to go back into one, training, education, economic empowerment. Let them have it. Let them have those ones. It is only in the Southeast today where we have the highest percentage of women in school, or higher percentage of women. If you go to Southeast, the total population of women to men is about 65 to 35%. It's curious. I was just thinking it's because of the war, but war has ended almost 40 years ago, which shows that some Southeast men don't even go to school, they want to go and trade. So women are more in the Southeast in schools. And even if we go to higher institutions, the same thing. And when they want to be brilliant, they come out very brilliant. We have examples here, all of them. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful for having this opportunity. I'm not saying that we should not be treating our women the way they should be treated. But the question is, women must not be reduced to issue of arithmetic and mathematics, quota, rotation, turn by turn. All these things, they are just mere mathematics. We love our women, and I love them to the extent that I marry just one of them so that I can take proper care of her. So we must also do part of the problem. Part of the problem is we must marry them in a manner that we should be able to take care of them properly.
You are letting those who are married.
No, I'm a Muslim that I marry for. But I'm only saying that I marry one to take care of my mind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's a serious indictment of people here. Very, very serious. But we all know that this bill is discriminatory. We all know that one. But the question is whether it is positive discrimination or negative discrimination. If it's positive discrimination, it's allowed. It's called affirmative action. But if it's negative discrimination, that is where we have an issue with. So that is the point that must be addressed. Whip, they will go to Professor Mojit. No, I'm not contributing. I'm just guiding the debate. Deputy Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Pali Iriasi. I represent Onwa Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, where there is a will, there is a way. And you have quickly reminded us that with power, you get money. We cannot continue to lament the situation of the women without wanting to walk the talk and come to their aid. We know they are packed full with potential. But what are we doing to really harness those potentials in governance? Are we saying that everywhere we are from in this country, we are not aware that there is discrimination against women, that there is no stigmatization arising from when a woman is interested in politics? The thing that comes to mind in the villages and towns, Mr. Speaker, is that it's a loose woman. Now, if we have a law that gives a quota, it becomes something that the villagers, the naysayers will know is asking the women to come and fill their quota. Today, we are here at the threshold of history. It is how it is always. The oppressed class will receive all kinds of self-serving arguments while the status quo must be maintained. Meanwhile, that status quo is very oppressive. We wouldn't want to do anything about it because we are not at the receiving end. He who feels it knows it. And we know that the women need us to rise up and help with this kind of bill. You asked the question, and it was a very fundamental one. Will this bill amount to a negative discrimination or a positive one? I answer in the affirmative that it will be a very positive one. If you must use the word discrimination, we must not run away from the fact that our practices, our culture, our behavioral pattern, our stigmatization constitute the worst discrimination against the women folk in Nigeria. And it behoves us as legislators here to do something that will reduce that tendency towards unnecessary stigmatization of women who want to contribute their quota to nation building. Mr. Speaker, there is no man here who will argue in the negative when I say that you are able to be here because a woman has stabilized you at home. Anyone who comes from an unsettled home today will not find his hearing and will not be articulate at all. And we now want to leave that to the kitchen and to the other room. Mr. Speaker, I say no. They will do better than we think they are able to do when we give them the opportunity. And this bill is calling for an opportunity for the women. And I urge that we will make chauvinism and support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I'd call on Professor Mojit. I believe that as a professor you must have eliminated all biases.
Thank you,
we'd like to hear from you.
I'm Professor Majid Alami. I represent the North, the South, Federal Area, and Federal Constituency. And I'm from the state of Osun. Mr. Speaker, for 4 main reasons, I'm a lover of women. I was born by a woman. I have women as my wives and girlfriends. I have 3 daughters, one of whom is thriving in a field dominated by men. She's an engineer without discrimination. Mr. Speaker, I am also doing everything within my power to empower women in my constituency. In fact, by next week, there is a program I'm doing that is devoted to women only. So nobody should accuse me of being women phobia at all. But there are issues that we need to address to be able to know whether to support this motion or not. When I saw it in the notice paper, I engaged a lady in my constituency. What is your view about this? And she told me that it will be insultive to her integrity. That whatever she had achieved today was achieved by dint of hard work. And if she had been given a special preference, she would be doubting herself. That probably, if I'm not a woman, I wouldn't have achieved this. Mr. Speaker, in Nigeria today, talk of politics, you have women who have made it. Talk of industry, talk of the economy, talk of any field. There are people who have made it without having to be given any special status. Because once you put that clause, then you begin to ask yourself whether the individual that is occupying the post is actually worth occupying the post or as a result of certain discrimination. Today in Nigeria, all of us are shouting about the effect of this kind of discrimination on the public service. Yet we want to introduce it again. That's a problem. In any event,
we shouldn't go very far. This bill is patently unconstitutional from two angles. It is unconstitutional because no citizen of Nigeria shall be discriminated upon based on the circumstances of his birth. Whether you are a man or a woman is a circumstance of your birth. Mr. Speaker, it may be positive for women, but it is negative for men. Because instead of having a 100% chance of occupying an office, you are now having less than 100% chance. And therefore, you are discriminating against the men. Unfortunately for us too, in those countries that we are talking about, there are affirmative provisions in their own basic law. In Nigeria, there is no affirmative provision in our constitution. In other political systems too, they have a way of solving such problems. Then you go to parliament, you find many of them. They use what we call proportional representation. Unfortunately too, in Nigeria, our delineation of constituency is based on geography. In other systems, you have a certain percentage for women, a certain percentage for labor leader, a certain percentage for youth. It is not like that in Nigeria. If you have to do it, you have to amend the constitution. If you don't amend the constitution, there will be a problem. Because this house cannot make any law that is at variance with the provisions of the constitution. Even if we want to make it a matter of policy, let us ask ourselves, we want to even make it a matter of policy. And on that, I will adopt in total all that has been said by the Deputy Speaker. That it has even been seen to be impracticable. For me, I believe we should find other avenues of ensuring that our women got whatever they want in government or in any other aspect of society, rather than saying you are leaving a particular percentage, which not only demean their own status, but also is impractical. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I think we'll restrict ourselves to 2 minutes so that more members can speak and will put the question. Honorable Lowell, but you know you'll be opposing this bill at the risk of seeing snakes again. So if you don't want to see snakes again, you know what to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My honorable colleague, my name is Lawal Abubakar. I represent the people of Yola North, Yola South, and here I'm from Adamawa State. Mr. Speaker, with due respect, the mover of this bill, I think, is just trying to play to the gallery and get the support of women. But as a lawyer, I believe his first duty is to see that he protects the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the provision of the laws he is proposing, one, if you look at the supremacy of the Constitution, Section 1, subsection 3, it is against that. And specifically, the section of the bill, Section 5 of the proposed bill, it is clearly against the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. That is why I tend to agree with Honorable Soba that we don't have to waste our time debating this. Because the provision of that bill, Section 5 of that bill, it is inconsistent with Section 71, 72, and 73 of the Constitution. The Constitution says delineation of constituencies. So if what the Constitution says, and it is a directive to INEC that from time to time, particularly Section 73, subsection 2, says delineation of the constituency. There is nowhere the Constitution refers that you can delineate the constituency based on gender or sex. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I don't want us to waste the valuable time of this honorable House, but rather to throw out this bill, because if he wants to bring such, there is no way a bill can come and amend the Constitution. The honorable Sadiq was a member of the Constituency Review Committee. He should know that, and he is a senior lawyer for that matter. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, please, I urge this honorable House to throw this bill in total, so that at least the support that he wants to, the sympathy of women that he wants to get in his constitution, in his constituency, to get votes, should not be there, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Honorable Law, don't ever come to me and complain that you have seen snakes again. Honorable Chika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. I'm Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shirora Female Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Niger State. Mr. Speaker, I have adopted all the other submissions made by my dear colleagues. But one thing about this bill, the bill is very, very illogical. Mr. Speaker, this bill has an intent and purpose of making women to be lazy. Mr. Speaker, as a teacher, I do not have marks that belong to women and then marks that belong to men. Mr. Speaker, today when you go to each and every school, I challenge everybody. When you go into any classroom, count the number of people there, you will see that the female folks are greater in number than the male folks. So, Mr. Speaker, this thing about women is growing by the day. Some it was cultural, and now the culture has begun to pass away. And then the women are engaging in various trades that in the past they don't. We see women today driving trailers. We see women today mechanics. A lot of professions that you never imagine that you will find a woman in the last 30 years or 40 years, you will find women. So if we allow this bill to come to play, Mr. Speaker, they will make the women lazy. I have 7 children, Mr. Speaker. I have 7 children.
Who is talking about?
6 out of them, Mr. Speaker, 6 out of them are female. And I believe...
Point of order. Okay, Honorable Karimi has a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Based on our rules, sir, if you want, this time is for those that will speak for, not those that are speaking against.
No, this is a bill, it's not a motion, Karimi.
Why are they speaking against?
No, this is a bill. It's not a motion. So take your seat. Chika, please round up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 7 children. Out of that 7 children, 6 are female. And that is to tell you, Mr. Speaker, I am a proponent and I must fight for women, and I have given my children that there is no place they cannot go, but all they need to do is to work hard. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, because I am championing the cause of women, that is why I have 2 wives. You may see me as an elite, but I have 2 wives so as to protect the women folks. With this, Mr. Speaker, I think this bill should not see the light of the day, and this bill should be rejected by my dear colleagues.
Honorable Mark Miller, quickly, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My very honorable colleagues, Mark Tese Miller, representing Boe East, Boe West Federal Constituency of Benue State. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, I would refer very quickly to the SDG Goal 5. And I want my honorable colleagues to please pay attention before I round up my debate and my argument. The Goal 5 of the SDG, this is a United Nations provision. Goal 5 says, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. And then under those targets, I'll go to 2 specific targets. It says, target number 5 says, ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision making in political, economic, and public life. And then finally, with regards to legislation, it says in the last target, adopt and strengthen sound policies and enforceable legislation for the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls at all levels. Mr. Speaker, my first point now is it that we do not realize women are the most vulnerable gender in the world, or we do not realize the disadvantages they have? Because when you talk about delineation, this is not an issue that has to do with delineation of constituencies. It's talking about trying to make and enhance the opportunities for women. And I'm sure that my colleague Chika will agree that in that class, when he said there are more women than men, the opportunities end up being more for the men and the women after graduation. Why is that? It is still the stigma that women have. So now I am not trying to say that we're going to be giving women undue advantages. We're trying to fast track the benefits
of empowering our women, just like even the United Nations that I've just read here now has seen this anomaly and has tried to do something in the SDGs in that regard. So finally, Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, there's an age-old adage that says, train a man and you train an individual, but train a woman and you will train a family. Now that is because there are certain advantages that women bring in whatever they do because of their fundamental disposition. So I appreciate all the constitutional observations that have been made, but I do not believe that our constitution has been breached in this regard. But even in that regard, it's not impossible for us to revisit those provisions of the constitution if we need to, so that we can enhance the opportunities for our women, which all over the world, even the United Nations has noticed that women are fundamentally disadvantaged. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable colleagues, it's unfortunate we may not continue with the debates because I wanted us to take the National Minimum Wage Bill debate live, and we just have a few minutes. So in view of the importance of this bill, I now say since we're in an electioneering period, we should go and consult our mothers, consult our wives, consult with our constituents. Then we will come and conclude the debate and put the question when we'll have a more fuller house, perhaps after the election. If you don't understand, I'm trying to protect those who are campaigning. That's my ruling. So, the next order of the day, honorable colleagues, commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to repeal the national minimum wage, Chapter N 61 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to prescribe a national minimum wage for workers and for related matters, standing in the name of the House Leader. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 24th January 2019. I now invite the Chairman Rules and Business to move that pursuant to Order 12, Rule 3.1, the House commence debate on the general principles of the bill.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, my name is Edward Pojok. I represent the South East constituency of Plateau State. Mr. Speaker, may I move that the House commence debate pursuant to the second reading of the bill on the amendment of the National Minimum Wage Act, and this is pursuant to Order 12, Rule 3 of the House Rules. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Second, Honorable Aminu Goro.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am from Kano State, and my name is Comrade Aminu Sulaiman. I represent Pagi Federal Constituency, and for obvious reason, I stand to second the motion for the commencement of debates on the amendment of the National Minimum Wage Act. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
So, Leader, you can now lead the debate.
Not the motion first for the motion. Speaker and respected colleagues, this is a bill set forward our bill. It is a bill that is trying to address the issues of the Nigerian workers in terms of payment of salaries. And for quite some time, if I recall, the last time this bill was amended was during the 6th Assembly. And by the act establishing the minimum wage, ordinarily and ideally, it is supposed to be attended after April 5.
Order, honorable members. Silence, please.
Speaker, what Nigerian workers are now earning is not a living wage. And I think it will do us right, and our House of Parliament, to go in tandem with what possibly will attempt, and I say attempt because as far as I'm concerned, we are yet to get to the right position in addressing the living minimum wage for Nigerian workers. And in the light of that, I move that this bill be considered expediently, and that all the clauses provided for in that clause be adhered to as much as possible. Especially after 5 years, we are supposed to take a review, or Parliament is supposed to take a review, or Nigerian government is supposed to take a review again towards solving the problem. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, in the light of this, I wish to call for the support of the Nigerian Parliament, which is the House of the People, House of Representatives, to support this bill, you read the second time, and so that we can have a very quick consideration. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable M.T. Monguno.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Martin Monguno Nganze, Federal Constituency of Borno State. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as rightly observed by the leader of the House, the minimum wage is supposed to be reviewed every 5 years to bring it in tandem with the inflationary trend in the country. And as rightly pointed out by him, the last time the minimum wage was reviewed was during the pendency of the Sixth Assembly. So it is long overdue for review, because there is need for Nigerian workers to earn a wage commensurate with the inflationary trend in the country, so that whatever they earn, by the time they go off market, they can be able to purchase things and pay school fees that their minimum wage can take. And this parliament, being the representative of the people and having regard to the fact that the law has prescribed it, I'm urging my colleagues to support the second reading of this bill so that Nigerian workers can earn the minimum wage that is commensurate with the inflationary trend in the country. Thank you.
Rules and business.
Mr. Speaker, my name is Edward Pojok. I represent the South to East of Plateau State. Let me start by commending Mr. Speaker and the leadership of the House and all of us. Today I can see that there are more members than even yesterday. That shows that this House has risen to the occasion. I do know, Mr. Speaker, why I'm commending you is that this letter only got to you in the night. And today it's not only being read, but you have taken the decision that also we will continue up to next week until we pass this very important legislative bill. Mr. Speaker, this is because we need to deal with this matter before we go for our electioneering campaigns. Mr. Speaker, the bill contains some very important items or elements that I think I need to draw our attention to. Number one is that in section 3 or clause 3 of the bill, it provides that no employer shall pay less than 27,000 naira. So the meaning of that is that the minimum wage for Nigeria, if this bill is passed, is 27,000 naira. Of course, we have read in the media that the federal government has said it will pay a minimum of 30,000 naira. But what this bill, which if it's passed, provides is that 27,000 naira is the minimum wage.
it means local governments, state governments, and the federal government cannot pay less than 27,000 naira. So we can pay higher. So the federal government has decided that for its own workforce, it will pay higher than the 27,000 naira minimum wage. And in determining who can be exempt from obeying this law, it is corporations or business firms that employ persons that are less than 25 in number. If you employ, let's say, 5 workers, 10 workers, you may not implement the national minimum wage law as amended if we pass this. Also, if you have casual workers, part-time workers, by this bill, you may not be you may be exempt from the provisions of this law. Then there are some other innovations too. The tripartite committee that was appointed by Mr. President has now been incorporated into this law, so that they will always recommend to the executive before the law becomes operational or before it's sent to the National Assembly. Also, there are punishments to enforce the provisions of this law. The minimum wage may be enforced by any aggrieved worker, trade unions, or the Minister of Labor and Employment. I think this is progressive, so that people now know that when this law is passed, even the aggrieved workers themselves can have no recourse to the National Industrial Court or to even the Minister of Labor to ensure that there's adequate, that there's effectiveness in terms of implementing the law. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, there are offenses that are attendant upon violation of this law, whether by individuals or by corporations. And I think that the financial provisions have been increased. So I think that it's a progressive piece of legislation. Some of us would have had some misgivings as to maybe some typographical errors or some other things, but in view of the importance of this matter and the fact that it has stayed for a very long time, we've been following the discussions, the arguments between Labour, the governors and the minister, and also the Federal Executive Council. I think that I would urge our colleagues that we should expeditiously pass this bill, because when the Speaker read the letter of the President, he said we should expeditiously pass it. So we are very grateful that most members are already here. People have left their campaigns to come here to demonstrate their support to Nigerian workers. It's good for Nigerians to know that many members have left the constituencies to come back here so that we pass this very important legislation. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to also add my voice in support of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Retired Comrade Aminu Suleiman Goro.
Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues, I am from Kano State, and my name is Comrade, not retired, Aminu Suleiman. I represent Pagi Federal Constituency. Honorable Speaker, like the chair that just spoke, I also want to express my appreciation, and if you allow me, the appreciation of the Nigerian workers, you, and by implication, honorable colleagues, that turn out in large number today, in spite of our various exigencies, purposely to debate and give positive support to this bill. There are actually apprehension from some of our colleagues from the Labour yesterday, fearing that the turnout these days is a little bit scanty and probably we may not form quorum to discuss it. And therefore, when I came up this morning and I saw the large turnout of our colleagues, it underscored the commitment of members of this House to to the cause of Nigerian workers. It is therefore my belief that our presence here will give bite to positive and very, very expeditious passage to second reading of this bill, and probably consequently for us to consider it for total passage next week when we meet. I will want to use the opportunity to congratulate all of us here, because we're going to be part of history. The minimum wage, like the leader stated, is supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. But of course, we knew what happened and the tension that the refusal or inability of the parties involved to review this issue nearly threw this country into. It is therefore with pride that I stand up to urge my colleagues who I knew very well have resolved to support this thing and to ensure that it is passed as quickly as possible. It is my belief that the Speaker and all of us will be part of history in ensuring that the Nigerian worker get his due, and appropriately do for that matter. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, while urging my colleagues to also support this. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes. I think Honorable Aminu Goro should always be guided. When the opinion of the chair always remains to be he is a retired comrade, he must be guided that he is a retired comrade. He cannot be disputed the opinion of the chair. Aminu Goro, you are formally addressed as a retired comrade, and you cannot be disputed the opinion of the chair. Please.
The whip is absolutely right.
Yes.
And Honorable Speaker, this serious retired comrade, make sure that you confine yourself to your status as a retired comrade.
You don't retire.
Deputy Whip.
The Right Honorable Speaker, I am Pali Iriase. I represent Onwa Federal Constituency. I'm from Edo State. Mr. Speaker, first let me commend the leadership of this House as represented by you, the presiding officer. Because I'm very much aware that even though some of us heard very late last night in the media that the bill is being transmitted to the National Assembly for the purpose of enacting this minimum wage, the letter got to you this morning. I can attest to that. And you ensure that in consultation with other leadership, this bill is being given the expeditious treatment today. It's again another historical feat for which posterity will salute you. The Nigerian worker has gone through too much pain. Every act in the past will lay down the period within which the minimum wage should be reviewed. But it has always been observed more in breach, such that people who depend on salary, whose incomes are fixed, are at the mercy of inflation. And even when the so-called negotiation starts, as usually triggered by the labor movement, government would drag their feet over the years, and inflation will more than swallow what is anticipated to be the increase. As we speak today, if you go to the market, because of the heavy noise that has been made about 30,000 naira, you hardly can buy anything the way you used to buy it over a year ago. Now we have gotten the bill. The bill is talking about 27,000 naira minimum. I want to say that this House has the tradition of not simply taking a bill and passing it as if we are a rubber stamp. We must work on this bill and give Nigerians what everybody has heard: 30,000 naira minimum wage. we are within the ambit of the law and the constitution when we do this. And the Nigerian worker will praise our courage when we do this. Even though we are talking about executive bills, this bill must be dealt with in accordance with what the tripartite committee was said to have come up with. There is too much foot dragging when it comes to the welfare of the Nigerian workers. And this House must put a stop to it, Mr. Speaker. We have heard, not Mr. President himself could deny that what the tripartite committee came up with was 30,000. But everybody is being twisted because we are hearing that the states will find it unsustainable. But you and I know that the revenue allocation formula is overdue for review. You and I know that there are various ways that this government can actually cause some savings that would help deal with the sufferings of these masses who are regarded as our workforce. We need to stand up for once. We are out here. We have all kinds of workers, domestic servants and all that. If we speak the truth, who is paying anything as little as the so-called 30,000 minimum wage? If you do that to your driver, then whatever happens to you on the way, you alone will know how to deal with it. And yet you say that is what we've been talking about for the past 2 years. And now the bill comes out. We are talking about 27,000. Mr. Speaker, 30,000 will be what this House should pass. And I'm commending it to those who will work on it at committee level. For this House to pass 30,000 minimum wage instead of this, rigmarole. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Aminu Shehu Shagari, I represent Yabo Shagari constituency of the state. I rise to support the passage of this very important bill, provided that the minimum wage shall be 30,000 naira instead of 27,000 being proposed in section 3, subsection 1 of this bill. And when it goes to public hearing, it should be at least 30,000, Mr. Speaker. I like particularly section 9, subsection 1 of this bill. And I would like to throw more light on the effect of section 9, subsection 1. Subsection 9, sub 1 says an employer shall pay the worker a wage not less than the national minimum wage, subject to the statutory deductions. Now, subsection 2 says any employer who fails to comply with the provisions of this section under C says he shall pay, no, under A says he shall pay a fine of not exceeding 5% of the offender's monthly wage. And this is the interesting part. Subsection C says pay an additional penalty of not less than the prevailing Central Bank of Nigeria lending rates on the wages owed. That means for each month that the violation continues, he will pay, that is a penalty, or a kind of, there will be an interest accruing on the sum that remains outstanding. This is a very good provision, and I I'm sure that it will help in deterring employers to hold their employees' wages. So I support this bill and I urge my colleagues to please do so. Thank you.
Honorable Kayode.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Kayode Oladele. I represent Yewa North and Imekwa Confederal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I'm from Ogun State. I also rise, just like my colleagues, to lend my support to the passage of this bill. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I would quote from the speech made by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt of the U.S. on this issue of livable wages for workers. He said, Mr. Speaker, that no business which depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country. Of course, that was in the U.S. But, Mr. Speaker, even in Nigeria, no such company should have the right to exist in Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing today is to discuss the general principles behind this very important bill. Of course, Section 4 of the bill says that certain people or certain companies are exempted from this minimum wage. I would say, Mr. Speaker, probably when we get to the committee stage, that we have to take a second look at this exception, because it talks about a company that has less than 25 workers. And of course, it's also talking about seasonal workers, such as agricultural workers. In Nigeria, we all know that we have quite a lot of private enterprises that employ less than 25 workers. So if we are exempting them, we may as well end up exempting almost half of the workers in Nigeria, and that may not actually fulfill the general intendment and the purpose of this very important bill. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I think we have to also look at why do we have to pass this bill. We know, Mr. Speaker, that today the poverty level is very high in Nigeria. It is everywhere. One thing that does not have discrimination in Nigeria that you can see everywhere is poverty. If you go to the north, if you go to the west, if you go to east, the south, everywhere there is poverty. And if we do this, Mr. Speaker, it will help us to reduce the rate of poverty in the country. And of course, with that also, it would be the reduction in the issue in income inequality in the country. The disparity in income is very, very high. It's very, very wide disparity. And if we pass this, of course, it's not going to be something that ends the disparity immediately, but it will bridge that disparity. It will bridge the gap between those who earn so high and those who earn so low. Of course, in Nigeria today, we also know, Mr. Speaker, that even 27,000 naira per month it's not a livable wage, but at least it's better than what we currently have. Therefore, if we pass this bill, it will help us to alleviate that and bridge the gap of the disparity in income. And of course, when workers are happy, when they earn well, they are happy. So if we increase this, Mr. Speaker, it's going to also increase productivity. If a worker knows that he's not being paid well, his productivity is going to be very low. He's not going to put in the best in the work he's doing. But if we pass this bill and becomes law, I guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that one way or the other, it will increase productivity in the country. And of course, it will boost the economy, because more money, more resources will be injected into the economy, and that will also give a multiplier effect. One good thing about this, Mr. Speaker, about this act, or this bill we are trying to pass today, is that it has a 5-year span. So it's not just a law that if it comes to effect, it's going to be there forever. It will be reviewed at the conclusion of every 5 years, at the end of every 5 years, because we know that the economy is very fluid, it's very dynamic, anything can happen between now and 5 years. But at least at the end of the fifth year, this assembly will also have a look at it to see whether we have to review it, add more, or let it be the way it is. Mr. Speaker, because I have a lot of other colleagues who want to talk on this matter, I would want to yield floor to them. But having said that, I will employ my colleagues to please support this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Waleoke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My fellow colleagues, I am Oluwole Oke, representing Ijesha North, comprising Oboku, Oriade. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Osun State. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to commend the Nigerian Labour Congress and its members nationwide for their determination ditto to the executive arm of government and more to the leadership of this House for considering this bill with admirable dispatch, Mr. Speaker. My fellow colleagues, I want to observe that no Nigerian worker earns a living wage. I've tried to compare notes with other clients where minimum wage is determined per man hour. And I've broken this 27,000 proposed down. And it has come to 900 naira per day and 110 naira per man hour, assuming, without considering that the worker works for 8 hours. Mr. Speaker, this is a bill before the Parliament. Our House rules and the Constitution permits us to literally beat this bill, so that at the end of the day, we will make Nigerian workers happier. The point I'm making, Mr. Speaker, is this, that the 27,000 or 30,000 proposed is grossly inadequate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm also worried because I watch over television the determination of Minister of Finance, the tax authority, wanting to also, bring other parameters to tax Nigerians. I hope they are not trying to take what they are giving to Nigerian workers by right hand, by left hand. Once again, I want to commend all of you, my colleagues, that abandoned your campaign train to be here to consider this bill with admirable dispatch. Nigerian workers deserve the best. And that is the only way. When a Nigerian worker earns a living wage, it is then you can eliminate corruption, both in the public service and in the private sector. Thank you.
Sure.
Question now.
Honorable Chika, then we'll move to this floor again.
Thank you, Speaker, my dear colleagues. I'm Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shirora Female Federal Council. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Niger State. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, the increase in the minimum wage is a welcome development. But however, Mr. Speaker, the 27,000 agreed by the system, for me, is very, very inadequate. Mr. Speaker, I am not an economist. But when we follow the trend, I follow economy, I follow the trend of economy because I have interest. Mr. Speaker, when you look at before the last minimum wage, each and every worker in Nigeria, if you are going to put the salary he was earning vis-a-vis that is the 18,000, then it was equal to about $150. What is $150 today? $150 today is nearly about 49,000 naira. And the cost of life, the inflation that has eaten the economy within that period is about 116%. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are now giving them 27,000 naira. And by this year, Mr. Speaker, if we look at the economic indices, there is likely going to be increase in the fuel price. There's going to be likely increase in the cost of energy. The federal government is mulling to increase tax. Mr. Speaker, this money is grossly inadequate. Why do I have this pen? Mr. Speaker, I started work in my life as a clerical officer. I know what it takes to be an officer at the lower level. This money, Mr. Speaker, that is said we cannot review or it will not be reviewed until in the next 5 years, I think this is wrong. Mr. Speaker, we have to check this system. We have to check that 5 years. I don't agree that we will not review this thing until in the next 5 years. Let's look at it in the next 1 year or in the next 2 years at the most. Because I am sure by the economic indices we have on the ground, this money will no longer be called money by the end of this year. So, Mr. Speaker, that 5 years, I appeal to my colleagues when we go other to the committees, this we should look again. Mr. Speaker, too, I heard Mr. President saying that this increase is for only those who are earning below 30,000 naira. Mr. Speaker, those who are earning above are also going to the same market. And we should have seniority in public service. I have stayed, I have gone to school, I have worked for a long period of time, and you have increased salary, and saying you will negotiate with me is not practical. Mr. Speaker, I wish that the executive submitted this salary with the table of increase so that we will know where this salary is going. We should have seen the percentage increase at each level. That will help us or will guide us in taking decision. But I wish this House, Mr. Speaker, should write before the public hearing so that we can see the table they wanted to adopt in terms of increase in this salary. Where we did not, Mr. Speaker, we are living the same trouble that will now emerge by the most senior officers in the public service, because even if I'm a senior officer, I will not agree. You increase 30,000 to my next junior level, I may be in level 6 and in that 30,000, and you have increased that amount, which is 27,000 as a minimum wage, to somebody who will meet me as a level 6 officer and is a level 3 officer. I will not agree with that. So for us to solve the problem, we need to see the table of the increment at the various grade levels. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleagues.
Honorable Kola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and my honorable colleagues. My name is Honorable Shegun Alexander Adekola, member representing Ekiti South, Federal Constituency 1 of Ekiti State. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a very important bill, and I commend our members to have reacted to it and to be here today to debate this motion, to this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Nigerian masses are really suffering. The workforce of Nigeria are really suffering. We are in the time that workers can hardly eat 3 square meals. We are in the period whereby most people go to bed with empty stomach. The prices of goods and services are astronomical. They are not within the reach of common man of the nation. Increasing minimum wage to 27,000 naira is grossly inadequate. And the whole masses have heard over radio, media, print media, mass media, that it is 30 naira per month. I mean 30,000 naira per month. Now we are debating 27,000 naira, which is even, the 30,000 naira is grossly inadequate, talk less of 27,000 naira. And we should be aware of the multiplier of effect of the increase increment of this salary, what will happen to goods and services in the market? The prices of goods and services will increase because people believe the workers are earning more now. Mr. Speaker, sir, we all know that a bag of rice now is almost 20,000 naira. What will 27,000 naira buy? And they are saying that it will not be reviewed until 5 years. How will Nigerian masses survive? I will advise that if we agree finally for this, there must be price control. Because if there's no price control, if price control unit is not instituted, I don't know how workers will still manage, even with 27,000 naira. And besides, even when this minimum wage was 18,000 naira, most employer of labor, ministries, agencies are owing, state governments are owing our workers. The salaries are not being paid as and when due. How do we overcome this so that Nigerian masses will not suffer? Now the salary will increase from 18,000 to 27, which is even probably inadequate. How are they going to make sure that state government, employer of labours are paying workers as and when due? Mr. Speaker, I will advise that all these debates, when this debate is subject to committee level, that the 5-year period should be reviewed, and also we should review it upward to 30,000 naira, not 27,000 naira, at least, so that Nigerian mass workforce can be happy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honorable colleagues.
Honorable Dimeji.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My dear colleagues, my name is Ayodele Oladimeji. I am also from Ekiti State, but I represent Ado Irepo, the Federal Constituency. Let me equally say that the issue of the worth of this minimum wage is not to write home about. If 1,000 people have said the same thing, we will continue to say it. Why? We have to compare the money we are talking about with the real situation on ground. 30,000 naira today at the realistic exchange rate of 360 is 83 naira 83.33 dollars. 27,000 naira is $75 dollars. If an individual who has wife and children, we have to survive on $75 in a month, we should know there is a problem. If the man is to live on $75 in a month, we must be asking how is he able to transport himself to his office? If he doesn't go by public transport, if he has to trek, he must fill his stomach before he will have energy to be able to trek to the office. So if he has to go to work at least 20 days in a month with $75 and still feed himself and feed the family, then we have issue. If we are trying to eliminate corruption, if we are fighting corruption, then we must provide what the people involved will eat. Like somebody said on the media the other day that if you are taking corruption from people and that is what they are feeding on, you must provide an alternative. So, if we are saying we are fighting corruption, but we are giving somebody what cannot sustain him in a month, then we are not really fighting corruption. Aside from this issue, I want to equally note that this also affects the quality of service we get from the public service. Public service is not performance driven. It's not looking at profitability or customer service. And that could derive from the fact that what we are paying them affects what they give as service. Whatever you give is what you get. They say you pay peanuts, you can only engage monkeys. So by this, what we are proposing to approve, even though we will support that we should support the bill, but the amount involved is grossly inadequate. Over the next 5 years, only God knows what the exchange rate will look like, then the price level, and so on.
So in the next 2 years, the value of this $75, which is 97,000 naira, may not worth more than $30. So if people have to survive on this amount over a period of 1 month, there is really a very serious problem at hand, which requires a very serious and immediate solution. So like people have said, I would recommend that we review this issue of how long the employees have to stay on this minimum wage before it is reduced, and it is reviewed. In the private sector, we have instances where wages are even reviewed twice in a year. I've gone through such system before. Or at minimum, every year, income will be reviewed in these establishments. So in the public service too, if we are expecting the best of service from them, if we are expecting our economy to really grow because they are the engine room of any government and of course the economy, then there is need for us to really look at a reform of the civil service that will give the workers there a very good and reasonable living wage that will make them equally to be very, very productive. So, Honorable Speaker, dear colleagues, while I feel that we should support this bill, I equally join us at the committee level to look at how we can make us reach a better living wage for our employees in the public service. Thank you.
Don't want to spend the whole day. Honorable EJ.
All right, Honorable Speaker and dear colleagues, I remain Honorable EJ Agboanyema, representing the good people of Ego Ibubaha Federal Constituency, Edo State. My dear Speaker and my colleagues, this issue has to do with the Nigerian people. If we don't engage the youth, Mr. Speaker, one day they will engage all of us. I don't see anything wrong. 30,000 naira. 30,000 naira, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we are debating. That is what we are debating. 30,000 naira. Minimum wage. Over the years, if I may recall, as far back in the 80s when our father was the president of this country, President Shagari, as a day, his first assignment was to sign minimum wage into law. That was 118 naira as a day. That is probably $1 to $1 thereabout. Now today, 360 thereabout to $1. And you expect somebody to get 27,000 naira to make his meal, to train his or her children, and whereas billions and trillions of Nigerian resources have gone to first meal. Crude oil left this country to global destination, unaccounted for. Over the years, they have bastardized this country to the detriment of the laborers that have put this country to see the life of this nation. Mr. Speaker, for me, the purchasing power today, as of today, go to the market. What can you buy with 27,000 naira a month? That means, like my colleagues have said, about $75. $75 monthly for someone that have worked for a whole month. Mr. Speaker, this is not even something to be debated. Unfortunately, we have some governors that are working, but there are some governors that are derailing the way of progress. When you look around, they fly every day from their state to Abuja, forming governors forum, instead of facing their own problem in their state. Some government cannot even do the needful to take care of their people. Well, thank God to my state, even when Comrade Adam Okshomola was governor then, he paid even when other governors refused to pay. My governor today is still paying. And some governors say they cannot pay. Look at the Paris Club fund that came, Mr. Speaker. The Palace Club fund that came, what happened to it? What happened to it? To some governors. The will of progress of this country. And here they are saying, oh, I want to appreciate Mr. President, President Buhari, for even setting up a committee to look into it. And their report showed that they've agreed to even approve the 30,000. But unfortunately, the cabal lined up to derail the will of progress. Mr. Speaker, this is not something to be debated. This is a serious matter to be debating on it and debating on it. We must approve it. At least minimum 30,000 naira to be given to the people. The Nigerian Labour Congress have been crying over the years. They deserve to have at least minimum 30,000 naira. Go to other countries, Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues. This is sad. This is very sad. It's unacceptable. It is pathetic for us to be debating 27,000 naira for minimum wage in our own country. This country is blessed by God, but the cabal has stolen this country, stolen all the resources and the money that belongs to Nigerian people. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to beg and appeal to my colleagues. 27,000 naira is not the issue. 30,000 naira is what we are talking about now. We must look at it. Beyond what they have said, to us, Mr. Speaker, 30,000 naira to be looked into. Thank you.
Honorable Macmillan, 2 minutes, please, so that we can finish this debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My very honorable colleague, Mark Tese Miller, representing Way East, Way West Federal Constituency of Benue State. Let me also start by very quickly commending my colleagues and the leadership of the House for quickly bringing this bill to the second reading. And let us put Nigerians on notice at this point that this National Assembly is not taking the issue of the minimum wage lightly. On that premise, I want to use this opportunity along with some of my colleagues to express our reservations about the Council of State's decision to wade into this matter when it is something that the tripartite committee had already agreed upon, which was not controverted by the President or any of his ministers. We do not understand why the Council of State had to start to recommend 27,000 against what was already agreed upon. So I want to appeal to this House and this National Assembly not to be on the wrong side of history. There is a case in contention now about what was already agreed upon. We know 30,000 was agreed upon, and I am sure we will not do anything less than that amount that was agreed upon. And let me quickly point out certain reservations that we would have to look at the committee stage. The issue of the exemptions, the powers that I believe were erroneously given to the minister. A minimum wage goes beyond the government institutions. It also affects the private sector. So these powers given strictly to the minister and those he authorizes, I think, are erroneous and out of place. And this is something I think we need to address. And I believe that the offenses for erring employers is not sufficient. And this is something that I want to appeal that we do something about at the committee stage. So let me just conclude by saying that some of us will pay very close attention at the committee stage to deliberations on this minimum wage to ensure that the Nigerian workers get a good bargain which is long overdue, and to ensure that the punitive measures for violation are sufficient enough to be a deterrent to those who will want to go against the provisions of this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Toby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues. My name is Toby Okechukwu.
Why?
I represent Aneri Owu, Ojiriba Federal Constituency from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to contribute to this act, to this bill for an act to repeal the National Minimum Wage Act of 1981. It presupposes that the last time the act was attended to, amended or addressed or came into place was 1981. It is auspicious that we are discussing that today. Ordinarily, my belief that the bill should have been here earlier, because we all know the present challenges we have with regard to the national elections that are coming into place. This idea of trying to ambush the legislature, like the budget, creates the impression that we are not ready to address the matter of this bill. But I believe that in spite of the fact that we might be going for the elections, members should be able to address this matter so that we come to a conclusion with regard to it. Well, there have been views with regard to the adequacy of 27,000 naira. Ordinarily, looking at our circumstances today, our economic situation, it will be preposterous to say that it is adequate. It is not. But it is not possible to shave a man in his absence. It is when it goes to the committee level, it will be important to get the states to make input with regard to this. Mr. Speaker, everything is wrong in a federating unit. When you have the federal government have to bail out states, bail them out for what? To pay salaries. It's completely out of place. You don't need to do it. If you had occasion or circumstance to bail out states, what gives you the impression that they can pay even the 27,000? When, as we are discussing, states are still owing salaries. Is it a matter of the money they are getting is not enough? Or is it because the management of the funds is not being properly taken care of by the states? These are matters that are very, very germane. Nobody should be in a federating unit and somebody dashes you money. Nobody should beg for it. So if the revenue sharing formula is not adequate, if the states are not productive enough, these are things that are material to the sustainability of the minimum wage. And the minimum is minimum. We should not forget that this minimum wage of 27 or 30,000, that we need to build on it with regard to other allowances. So it is important and critical that we look at what are the imperfections of this union that is making it impossible that almost 80% of the states are not even able to pay the 18 that is presently in place. It's abnormal. So we need to do what is sustainable. Then, I do not like the idea and the drama that occasions minimum wage. Each time it is a struggle. Why must it be a battle that the Nigerian worker has to win to review a minimum wage? These are reviewed in timely fashion, in a structured fashion, in other jurisdictions. Why must our own be a struggle, a battle we have to win every other day? There has to be an adequate legal framework as we consider this bill to repeal the 1981 Minimum Wage Act and bring forth the one for 2019. There must have to be a way. By the next 5 years, it comes into place by operation of law. It doesn't have to be at the whims and caprices of anybody. Minimum wage is minimum wage. It
should not be a Christmas surprise. It should not be a surprise that, oh, suddenly government wakes up, workers are agitating and all that. That is the drama that when you now approve this, because it's not structured and it doesn't come with the fluxion of time. By the time you say, oh, minimum wage is approved, you have rice prices double. You have car transportation double. You have everything on earth, even when there are not material to living conditions, they will just all double because somebody has said that minimum wage has increased. So I think the law that we are proposing should take care of that. Then, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the greatest threat to the minimum wage or living condition of the Nigerian is not how much you pay. It's the fact that it may not be available when you need it. It's the fact that fiscal policy changes of government have no science to it. If President Shehu Shagari could do 180 naira, which would have been $180, the minimum wage of the Nigerian today, how much is it? We are actually trying to restitute the Nigerian worker as at 2015. Because the fiscal policy changed by government, where the dollar had to collapse by almost 100%, means that you will ordinarily be earning what you were earning in real terms. So fiscal policy changes by government, whether it is a prime lending rate, whether it is exchange rate, there are matters material to whether this wage is sustainable or not. So I think, whereas we are addressing how much the Nigerian workers earn, the minimum, as per volume, we must make sure we address issues of management that makes the economics of it not realistic for them. If you have to do this and you have to buy rice 27,000 naira, it means you are using the minimum wage to buy it. So I think it is important that we address the economy and manage it in a way that is sustainable. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that the details will be looked at and fashioned in a way that we can come out with a document that addresses all these our imperfections, whether it is in law or in our behavioral economics. So I support that this bill should pass second reading and that we should be able to address this matter so that Nigerian worker doesn't have to struggle each and every time he asks for a review of his wage. Thank you and God bless you.
Honorable, okay, we'll start with Karimi, then Johnson, then Sadiq will round up the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, my name is Karimi Sunday. I'm from Kogi State. I represent Yagba West, Yagba East, Opambo Federal Constituency. National minimum wage of 27,000. My colleagues, when the minimum wage was reviewed last, was in 2004. As at that time, the exchange rate of naira to a dollar is around 120. And if you convert the minimum wage that time, it was $150. Today, 27,000 is equivalent to $75. It is not an increase, but a decrease because of the inflationary rate in the country as at today. If you pay a worker 27,000 per month, out of that 27,000, we will pay for his rent, pay for feeding, and pay for his personal upkeep. That is inadequate. And that was what our Council of State sat down to discuss and approve in service of common man. It's unfortunate that the governing class in this country will keep on cheating our people. Let's face the reality. The substance of the Federation today is not as if they cannot pay this minimum wage. What is our problem? Corruption. 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 And instead of fighting this corruption and facing it, we are fighting ourselves in the name of corruption. Or fighting corruption. We are not fighting real corruption. What we are fighting is political fighting. If we are to face corruption and fight corruption in this nation, some governors of this country, they should be in jail. Let's face the reality. In some states of the Federation today, workers have lost count of what they are being owed. Let's face the reality. Some workers are owed 18 months, 20-something months, and when they pay them, somebody receiving 60,000 per month can see a lot of 10,000 in the 4 places. Instead of paying them 60,000, they pay them 10,000 and say they are paid for 4 months. That is what is happening in our nation today. We are cheating our people. Our people are being impoverished every day in the name of governance. So this minimum wage thing is not as if our states cannot pay. Some of these states, they took bailout, they took Paris fund, bailout, but where are those funds? They are going to their pocket. Some state governor can afford to pay 500 million to borrow crowds for campaign. We know what is happening. All these stadiums and all those places you see being filled up with people, they are renting crowd to bring these people there. And it is the same public fund that is being used to rent those crowds. You have to face reality. Because one day, we are going to give account to God on what we are doing with our people. National minimum wage, 27,000 is inadequate. But even this 27,000 are state governors ready to pay? No. Some of these governors prefer to steal the money instead of paying the people. So we need to make law on how to trace this public fund that some people are keeping in their private account. And this corruption that is being fought today is not fighting corruption. We have to fight corruption in reality. Some of these are people, they need to go to jail. Thank you.
Honorable Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and my respected colleagues. I'm Honorable Johnson Agwaki. I represent all the people of Esako Federal Constituency. I am from Edo State. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, I want to add my voice to this debate on this minimum wage, and thank God that it is a bill, and it's a bill to be considered by the National Assembly and not by the National Council of State. Minimum wage in Nigeria is fixed administratively, because when you want to consider the income of a worker, there are so many parameters that you need to consider. The house rent, the cost of transportation, medical, and all other sundries. You consider all this before you arrive at an income of a worker or a wage of a worker. For me, I see the 30,000 naira that they were measuring. I thought that there was a differential differential, federal and state. But on seeing the bill now, I discovered that the minimum wage, as is referred, is 27,000. What it means, even at 30,000 naira, what it means is that 1,000 naira a day for your transportation, for your feeding, for your medical, for your wife. If you are married with 2 children, 1,000 naira a day for a Nigerian worker. It is callous and it is wicked. For me, I think Nigeria government need to go back and rethink. I know of some governors that only one bulletproof car can pay a minimum wage of 45,000 naira to our citizens. We are true representatives of the people. Why will an elected governor claim that he cannot pay 30,000 naira minimum wage? A minimum wage that does not consider the fact that there's no Nigeria that is under social security. No one that is under social security. A 30,000 naira for a governor of a state whose dog in a house, 1,500,000 naira is not enough in a month. You will place a 30, you argue and negotiate a 30,000 naira for an individual that is expected to marry and have children in a month with an inflation hyper a country. My fellow colleagues, I want to appeal to you. We have an opportunity to stand in the gap for our people, since we are the true representatives. They have made their suggestion. That one is just a suggestion. It's not binding on us. We have constitutional mandate to consider a wage that we think that is living for the Nigerian worker. This opportunity must not pass us by. Let us consider an amount of money that a Nigerian worker, even what we are considering is even those that are opportune to even have a job to do. We are not even talking about those that are not even in the list, that for almost 30 years they have been watching, say, where will we get a living, a money to live on. This one is only those that are opportune. So please, we have opportunity, let us forget how this bill came. Let's sit down as true representatives of people and consider what is good for the Nigerian worker and what is good for Nigerians. Even 30,000 naira to me is too small to be considered for somebody who will go to an office from 1 day to 30 days in a month for the 30,000 naira minimum. I think it's killing, and that is why so many Nigerian workers are committing suicide every day. Some are reported, some are not reported. Some are losing marriages every day, and some are reported and some are not reported. Some have lost parents due to e-health because they cannot afford to raise 1,000 naira in a day. For a country that is as rich as Nigeria, to be discussing 30,000 naira minimum wage, I think it's absurd and it's not acceptable, and I'm not happy about it. I feel pain, and I appeal to your conscience. We have an opportunity to make history in this country. Whatever we agree, it will go, let them reject it. For the very first time, you will discover that even if it's 2/3 or 5/3 that is required to pass this bill, it will be acceptable and Nigeria will be happy for it. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. God bless you all.
Honorable Sadiq.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Sadiq Ibrahim. I represent Fufore, some federal constituency, Mr. Speaker. My honorable colleagues, I'm from Adamawa State. So many people have spoken on this matter. It is so important. It is a national issue, a topical issue for all of us. First of all, without at the risk of being repetitive or repeating what my other colleagues have said, Mr. Speaker, I want to start by congratulating Labour. They have fought a hard war, a hard battle, which they have won. But all of us that have spoken are of the view that what they have won is not sufficient. I said it is not sufficient. No, it is not enough, because there can never be enough. But there can be sufficient. even the sufficient that we think they have gotten now, 30,000, 27,000, Mr. Speaker, if we don't take measures, which we have to bring to the attention of the executive and all Nigerians, that our social system has completely collapsed. Today, Mr. Speaker, even if you are paid 1 million naira as minimum wage, when there is no adequate health facility, there is no adequate transportation facility, there is no adequate education, there is no adequate housing, no matter how much you are paid, it will be eroded by these payments that you have to make, because the money that will be in your pocket is just like taking that money from the right-hand side of your pocket to not only the left-hand side of your pocket, but throwing it into the dustbin. Because it is nothing to you. Don't forget about the fact that we have so much dependence on us, all of us as salary earners, that this 30,000 naira cannot make meaning to any one of us. But my happiness, Mr. Speaker, is that this is the second reading of this bill. And after this, it will be committed to the committee, therefore it will go for public hearing. The labor that fought that war, which they won, but what they got as booty amounted to nothing, will come before us, they will ventilate their anger, and they will also tell us what is it that they want, so that we as their representatives and representatives of the people can now come back here as lawmakers and pass a law that the executive can execute to ensure that our own workers have not only a minimum wage, but a living wage. With this, Mr. Speaker, I will conclude by saying that Labour has done a lot, especially the leadership of Labour. The government has also done a lot by acceding to the request, even though it is halfway. We, as legislators, will now sit down and ensure that what Labour and the executive agreed or seem to agree will now be made into a law to be implemented. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
So, honorable colleagues, I think we have come to the end of the debate on the bill, and I'll put the question. Question is that the bill will be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. So, because of I now invite the clerk to read the long title of the bill.
Honourable Speaker, honourable members, the bill for an act to repeal the National Minimum Wage Act, Chapter N 61 Laws for the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to prescribe a national minimum wage for workers and for related matters. Second reading.
Honorable colleagues, because the demands of the season we're in, we are committing the bill to an ad hoc committee, not the main committee, because the chairman may not even be around because of politicking. So the ad hoc committee will be composed as follows. The chairman is the Right Honorable Lasson Suleiman Yusuf. Membership as follows: Honorable Edward Pajok, Honorable Chika Adamu, Honorable M.T. Monguno, Honorable Umar Danladi Zuru, Honorable Aminu Suleiman Goro, Honorable Sadiq Ibrahim, Honorable Ija Obayuba, Honorable Lovett Idisi, Honorable Nena Elendo Keju, Honorable Chukwemeka Ujam, Honorable Adeyinka Ajayi, Honorable James Faleke. And the public hearing will hold on Monday unfailingly. Well, it is hoped that the committee will report to us on Tuesday, and by the grace of God we'll pass it on Tuesday, and then we can close the session until after elections. So even though advertisement will be placed on the papers, I want to announce from the chair that the ministers of labor, for instance, productivity, and all relevant ministers, all relevant government agencies, including state governors, or state government should make a representation to the committee on Monday, as after that we are bound to conclude and take a decision on what we think is appropriate in the circumstances. So the public hearing is Monday. Fifth order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of Bill for an Act to provide for statutory regulation of peacekeeping operations by members of the Nigerian Armed Forces, the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other security organizations for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Luwale Oke. Honorable members who recall the bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 11 July 2018, and now invite Honorable Oke to move the bill now for a second time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, once again, I am Uluwale Oke, representing Obokun Oriade. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Osun State. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, may I move, sir, that a bill for an act to provide for statutory regulation of peacekeeping operations by members of the Nigerian Armed Forces, the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other security organizations, and for related matters, be read a second time. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Garo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nasiru Sulegaro, representing Gwarzakawa Federal Constituency. I hereby second the motion as moved by Honorable Wale Oke. I so second.
Honorable, will you please lead the debate?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues. Since its independence, Mr. Speaker, Nigeria has been a frontline state and major contributor to United Nations, UN, and non-United Nations peacekeeping initiatives. It is worthy of note, Mr. Speaker, that in 1960, Nigeria deployed the first set of individual police officers in Africa. Mr. Speaker, it is estimated to Congo, Mr. Speaker, it is estimated that Nigeria has spent over $8 billion in peacekeeping missions. It has provided within the Economic Community of West Africa, ECOWAS, some of the ECOWAS countries that Nigeria has provided such missions are Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, and Sierra Leone. My colleagues, the legendary feats of our gallant armed forces remain evident in countries like Liberia,
and Sierra Leone, where we pour human and material resources to bring peace to those troubled states at that time. Mr. Speaker, in 2004, Nigerian troops were deployed to Darfur as part of the African Union mission in Sudan. Nigeria also provides 1,200 troops and 200 police officers in Mali in 2004. Mr. Speaker, it is however surprising that despite this fact that we have been a major contributor to UN and non-UN peacekeeping missions, Nigeria does not have a regulatory framework that guides the deployment and withdrawal of Nigerian troops and security personnel from conflict zones. Interestingly, Mr. Speaker, Nigerian law does not contain a single provision on this subject matter. My colleagues, even though Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has altered 1999 Constitution, vests clear powers in the President to declare a state of emergency in the Federation or part thereof. This power is restricted to the boundaries of Nigeria. Hence, where there is need to deploy troops and security personnel outside the shores of Nigeria, the Constitution does not make any specific provision for this. And the practice has been that the President simply gives his approval for involvement in peacekeeping. Mr. Speaker, this bill simply seeks to regulate our participation as a member of the United Nations in peacekeeping operations. Year in, year out, Mr. Speaker, we spend money in deploying our troops abroad. Like I've observed, we spend about $8 billion. There's nowhere in our operation where this is mentioned. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, when you deploy both men, materials, and equipment for peacekeeping, United Nations also reimburse us. Mr. Speaker, there's nowhere in our budget where this has been captured as a source of revenue. I could recall vividly, Mr. Speaker, the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua had to set up a panel to investigate using its application of refunds from United Nations. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to put a framework so that we'll be able to capture, pursuant to Section 80 of the Constitution, utilization of taxpayers' money. Aside this, Mr. Speaker, I also want to elaborate on the benefits. In Bangladesh, Mr. Speaker, there are about 30,000 youths of that country partake in peacekeeping operations. In Nigeria, when we are busy, fighting insurgents in the northeast and other parts of this country, we don't even have enough personnel to partake in exercise. And our youth, able-bodied men and women, are roaming the streets. In other words, Mr. Speaker, if this bill says true, it will also be a source of direct employment for teeming youth on the street. Mr. Speaker, countries like Ukraine specializes in deployment of equipment, in peacekeeping operations, and it's one of their major sources of foreign earning. Ditto in India, Mr. Speaker. In India, what they deploy are their men, and they also earn so much from United Nations. Mr. Speaker, in countries like Japan and Korea, you have laws enacted by their parliament to guide their participation in peacekeeping operations. I want to urge my colleagues, the Constitution under Section 4 is before us to make laws for this country. If this bill sails through, Mr. Speaker, like I observed, it will create an avenue to recruit, train our younger ones to partake in peacekeeping operations, and it will also be a source of foreign exchange earnings. I urge you, my colleagues, to please allow this bill to see the light of the day. I thank you all.
This is a very straightforward bill. Do you want us to debate it? Okay, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Lasso Yusuf. I represent Irepodun Olorunda Orulu Osogbo Federal Constituency. I'm from the state of Osun. While Honorable Wole Oke was debating the bill, the deputy leader just said one or two things that I feel are very important, but I have some other few things too that are important but might be a little bit of a sensitive. One of the few things the deputy leader said is, this is an important bill. We should have had in the presence of the chairman, Army, Navy, internal security is here, and some sort. But the one that interests me most, that we do not attune our mind to, is the fact that if you look at Nigeria in the last 50 years or so, we have done so much in Africa that if we have been able to get our act together, we wouldn't have been answering the name Big Brother in name alone. We will have been one of the biggest economy by all standards. And how do I mean? We took active part in liberating South Africa. We fought our war in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Congo, everywhere. And incidentally, these are well-known countries that are very rich. And we cannot trace direct economic benefit back to Nigeria. It's a major problem. I stand to be corrected. If you see America anywhere all over the world, whether they go there to cause the war or they invited them to go and quell the war, they will only be present there because of the economic benefit they are going to get there. If I'm sorry, with all due respect to the sensibility of Liberians, we single-handedly liberated Liberia. Today, we are not even getting a single kobo there. And we spent our money, our men are killed there, and yet, so what I want to say is what Honorable Wole Oke is bringing in the very quiet moment of the chamber is one of the few things that we must pay attention to. I'm not saying we should go drag our young men and women to go and be doing, but even those ones that we did in the past, what were the economic benefits? Until I started reading about peacekeeping operation and international war, that I got to know that even when you deploy equipment to any piece of, you immediately be reinforced and reimbursed immediately, because you must collect the money that is due to that equipment even before your men move in. So we are only playing this Big Brother thing. So I'm supporting the bill, but while supporting the bill, we must even look at all the treaties that in that respect and see whether some of the things Honorable Wole Oke wants us to take care of have already been taken care of. And so I want to advise Nigerians, we don't just go to peace operation without having in mind our own economic interest too, because in international politics, once your economic interest is not involved, what is your own business here? I'm sorry to say, we know countries that will go to other countries to go and see their natural resources now. They stole our natural resources in those days through colonialism. But these days is by mere military power. When they call for peace operation in your area, after liberating you, they steal your economic interest. Iraq oil was stolen for a long time. Some other country, you know the country that is involved. They don't go there when they can't steal your natural resources. Because what is their benefit there? So it's a good bill, but I wouldn't know the scope of what Honorable Wole Oke wants us to treat. But it is wide, very, very wide. And if we find a way, even if it is a byline, that if our interest is not going to be taken care of in the peace operation, we shouldn't go there to do. Although we know no man is an island, but in this case, you can only no man is an island. I know and I understand that. But our economic interest is far more important than so many other things. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, I thought that our first and foremost interest would be humanity first. Every other thing second. Those things are not set.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for yielding to me to contribute my 2 pence to this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, Nigeria has had a long history of United Nations peacekeeping. We've had a very long history where Nigeria has given of herself and Nigeria has benefited as well from peacekeeping. Mr. Speaker, for the United Nations, Nigeria has several considerations as to why it is very important for us to continue to be part of the United Nations peacekeeping body. One of them is the political rationale behind it. Now, Mr. Speaker, so our political rationale states that part of Nigeria's constitution is within our foreign policy objectives is global peace. And of course, we believe that as a country, that it is our responsibility, and this is one of the very few ways in which we can contribute to global peace. But also, Mr. Speaker, and this answers directly to the Deputy Speaker's concerns, that for as long as Nigeria continues to be very visible around the world, United Nations peacekeeping, it gives us the opportunity within the United Nations to actually legitimately vie for a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council. Now that is one of the things that Nigeria, that incentivizes us as a country to continue to go into this peacekeeping efforts. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, for us as a country, yes, again, the Deputy Speaker spoke about us being the big brother of Nigeria, of Africa, but that is our normative policy. We believe that a country as big as Nigeria, and you know, in global politics, might is right. And if Nigeria has taken on that position, then it is our responsibility to ensure that that we continue to be strong within the sub-region as well as the region. For the longest time, Nigeria was a global power. But Nigeria, because of dwindling resources, because of the fact that we have a military that unfortunately is getting weaker, because of our own internal security problems, Nigeria's position has started to move from a global power to a regional power. And some people, of course, insultingly refer to us as a sub-regional power. So I think that this is also one of the things that we need to do. Now, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, sir, the truth of the matter is that there are so many issues that have weakened our United Nations peacekeeping presence around the world. Nigeria at the time used to be number 4. We were between number 2 and number 4 in the world with regards to professionalism, equipment, the ability for us to enforce peace and to keep peace. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, so countries like Senegal, even on the sub-region, are overtaking us. Now, what this bill seeks to do is that Nigeria has spent over time over $10 billion only in within ECOMOG. We spent about $10 million trying to keep the peace there. But only in one operation for the United Nations, the reimbursement to our country was $798 million. Now, for us, it's important, and I know that we do not know how those monies were spent. I do not know what we did with the accruals to Nigeria. And the reason for that, Mr. Speaker, is that there's little public scrutiny and there's very little conversations about the United Nations and what happens within the United Nations. This House passed the bill on more innovative ways of funding our military. We recognize that we need a military, that we cannot do intra-budgetary funding for our military, and that we're going to have to look for innovative ways to fund our militaries. A lot of the countries in Africa use these monies that are given to them as reimbursements from the United Nations to fund their military. But what he's seeking to do is for us to have some kind of legal framework that opens up the expenditure for the peacekeeping operations as well as the accruals for the peacekeeping operations so that we know how much we're spending, put it against how much is coming to us, and decide whether indeed this is another means that we want to use to fund our military to give us the military that we deserve. My dear colleagues, added to everything else that has been said, I think that this one will come up with very innovative means. It opens up that very closed area that nobody ever talks to and gives us the opportunity to look, to scrutinize the budgets, the accruals, and the expenditure on this, so that as Parliament, it is not a place that is no-go to us and we're not blind to. So I urge my colleagues to please support this motion so that we can equip our military, open up to scrutiny, and understand exactly what it is that we spend and what it is that comes back to us, and how we can strengthen our military so that we can have a stronger military that is more desirable around the world, so that we can also get more money coming back to us. I so submit. Thank you.
Honorable colleagues, the question is the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Clerks invited to read the long title of the bill.
Okay.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, it may be for honor to provide for statutory regulation of peacekeeping operations by members of the Nigerian Armed Forces, the Nigeria Police Force, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other security organizations, and for related matters. Second reading.
Be referred to Committee on Defense and Police Affairs. Sixth order of the day is a motion on needs to investigate the alleged irregularities in the ongoing renewal of oil and gas leases and massive loss of revenue to the government of the Federation, standing in the name of Honorable Abubakar Chika Adamu. Honorable Chika is now invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleagues. I'm Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shiroro Rafumia Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Niger State. Mr. Speaker, my motion for today is the need to investigate the alleged irregularities in the ongoing renewal of oil and gas leases and massive loss of revenue to the government of the Federation. The House noted that the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream in December 2017 observed irregularities in the renewal of oil and gas leases being undertaken by the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and Department of Petroleum Resources. Also note that Ministry of Petroleum Resources is allegedly granting illegal discounts and rebates in the process of renewal of leases. Aware that under the provision of the extant laws, failure to pay royalties is a ground for revocation of leases and a legal barrier to renewal of applicable leases. What is that Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Department of Petroleum Resources are allegedly renewing leases of companies that have failed to pay royalties to the government from oil and gas lifted by the said companies in contravention of the extant laws. Concerned that the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Department of Petroleum Resources have deliberately flouted the subsisting legal framework and due process prescribed by the extant laws for the renewal of leases. Also concerned that the irregularities being perpetrated by the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Department of Petroleum Resources in the renewal process are capable of denying government revenues in excess of $10 billion as a result of illegal discounts and rebates being granted in the process of renewal of leases. Further concerned that the Department of Petroleum Resources has deliberately refused to provide the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream with relevant information and data related to the renewal of leases. Cognizant of the need to thoroughly investigate the renewal of leases being undertaken by the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Department of Petroleum Resources, and to ascertain the reason for the abnormalities observed in the renewal process, as well as identify appropriate measures to deal with the anomalies through appropriate legal action, legislative actions. Resolved to mandate the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream to investigate the renewal of leases being undertaken by the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Department of Petroleum Resources and report back to the House within 4 weeks for further legislative action. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Seconder, Honorable Lawal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Lawal Abubakar. I represent the people of Yola North Yola South Area. I rise to second the motion heavily moved by my friend Honorable Chika Adamu, and I so second.
This is an investigative motion, so I'll just put the question without debate as is stipulated in our rules. So those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it, nay. Ayes have it. Leader.
Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I Tuesday, 29th of January 2019. I so move.
Chairman, rules and business.
Mr. Speaker, may I second the motion for the adjournment of this House Tuesday, 29th of January 2019. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. The ayes have it. Those who want to say nay can stay till tomorrow.